Hey there, old school gamers. Welcome back to GM Academy, where we help you be your best, greatest inner GM you can be. We're continuing our series on the different types of playstyles out there. Now, no player is this particular playstyle all the time. Okay, maybe some of us are. Last time, I talked about the map crawlers and combat junkies. And yeah, those tables are pretty static. They don't necessarily change a whole lot. That's pretty much what they want all the time. But today we're going to talk about one category of the deep role players. Now, there are a few different categories of deep role players, and the ones that I'm talking about today, because I'll talk about the others tomorrow, are the what I call the cross table deep role players. And because they're cross table deep role players, they don't necessarily really care about the NPCs in your GM'd universe. Now, if your GM'd universe was a real world, then every day, billions of people, or maybe millions if you have a world with a smaller population, or I don't know, maybe tens or hundreds of thousands if you're doing some kind of post-apocalyptic thing. But the population of your GM'd world gets up every day and opens their eyes, and whether they're a human or an elf or a dwarf or dragonborn or whatever they are, these people open up their eyes and they don't know they're NPCs. I've kind of talked about this before, about creating a living, breathing world. There are some videos, if you look back in the video archive here on YouTube, about bringing your NPCs to life. Not going to repeat that here. First of all, it doesn't really matter so much here. I'll probably mention it more in the next video, because the point here is that your deep role players of the cross table type, they don't care for the most part. It's not that they won't ever engage with your NPCs. It's not that your NPCs aren't important, because if you had a party of 6 people, they represent 6 people out of billions or millions or at least hundreds of thousands that make this world happen. So just like in real life, each one of us is just one person. Now, we may be part of a family or a school or a corporation or family unit or something, but and so we kind of function as a part of a whole, just like a party member functions as a part of a whole. But each one of us is just one person. So your world does matter, and I'm going to talk about NPCs more, but these deep role players of the cross-table variety, they are most interested in the other player characters. They want to make it kind of like that 90s and early 2000s sitcom Friends. They want to dun 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 dun. Yeah, so they basically will be, a lot of times they will be happy just sitting around and playing pretend with each other. They don't always need a lot of plot. So now, this isn't my style of play at all, okay? And what I'm kind of teaching here is that if you're going to step out as a GM, you're going to need to address types of styles of play that aren't yours. If you're only DMing for people who are like you won't find enough people. So you've got to be able to DM for all these styles that are out there. And so what has happened a few times is, since I've been doing this professional GMing thing, is there have been groups that will actually stop in what they think is a safe place on a map crawl map, or dungeon map or whatever, in the middle of an adventure, and they will, they'll be having a rest or something, and they'll have sort of secured the room. At least they'll make sure there's no monsters in the immediate vicinity and stuff, and the door will be shut and everything. They'll be trying to have a rest, recuperate their hit points and whatnot. And they will spend, and I've watched the Windows system tray in the corner of my computer screen down at the bottom, they will spend 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and they're paying for this time, and they'll have a ball, and they won't need you at all. So what's happened, I've just sat there and listened, while they basically just play pretend with each other. Now, like I said, this is not my style of play. And so every GM instinct in me was just screaming, my inner GM coach voice for myself was saying, John, grab that wandering monster table. Because if this was, because I like to simulate if this universe was real. We'll get to that style of play later. I'm a simulation player. Okay, so as we go through this series and talk about the different styles of play, we'll talk about the simulationists, and I'll probably talk a lot because I am one. But I know that if this was a real place, if this was a real that if this D&D world was real, if the events happening on this map were real, creatures wouldn't be just sitting in rooms waiting to be found by adventurers and killed. They'd be moving around. There's an agenda going on. In that particular adventure, there was an evil cult that was trying to bring back a Lovecraftian, cosmic horror, Cthulhuid entity, outer being, cosmic horror thing from beyond. And the party was supposed to, interrupt that ceremony and save the world and stop that being from coming through to the material world. And of course, they spend 40 minutes just hanging out, having friends, dun da 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 dun dun da da da. And every instinct in me just screamed, grab that wandering monster table, because something would come into the room. This is not a safe place. This is not an inn. This is not a tavern. This is not a place for them to hang out and talk. But they do, and they will. And that's what they want. That's what they're paying you for. They're paying for you to DM their style of game, and that's their style of game. It's if you're not like me and I'm a simulationist. I'm trying to be your living MMO game engine with my mind and try to simulate this reality for you so that you can live there in your imagination. But they didn't want that, a simulated. They wanted a reality that they could just put on pause and hang out and da 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 dum da 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 da. So that's a thing. I even at one point, this was maybe a few months ago, there was a gentleman who, the party specifically, this guy said, I'm tired of the map. I want to go to an inn and hang out and talk with y'all and listen to people, because they'll tell you what they want. That's what he said he wanted to do. So they go to this inn. I start describing the inn, and he's like, John, we came here to talk to each other. You can kind of lay off the flavor a little bit. And the thing is, this particular inn was unique. As far as I know, it's unique in D&D anywhere. Like, it's not just an inn. It was an inn that they might never see again in their gaming career. And so I kind of pointed that out. So I just, if you're going to interact with this environment, I just want to make sure I painted the picture of the environment, So I kind of, as the DM, I kind of continued painting the picture of the environment a little bit, then let them go. And they went for an hour. They went for an hour, da 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 dum da 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 da, just hanging out, talking with each other, playing pretend. And if you're thinking, John, they don't need us DMs to do that, you're right. They don't need us to do that. So I'm just sitting there on, Discord and a VTT, getting paid to listen to adults play pretend. That is one style of play. That is the deep role players, cross table version where they want to interact with each other. Now, next time we'll talk, there are many more play styles to talk about. The next play style we'll talk about is the other variety of deep role player, and that's the deep role player that wants to interact with your NPCs, interact with your world, and get involved with what's happening in your world and become somebody in your world. So there's the deep role player cross table where they want to be role playing with the other players. Then there's deep role play where they're actually going to, explore your world, dig into your world, get involved with your world. We'll talk about that next time. In the meantime, if this content is helpful to you as a DM or a player, you can receive personal coaching down below with our Patreon. And if you just want to play with us, we got some open tables. Check out our Discord on our website. That's down there too. In the meantime, I'll see you around the gaming table.